county elections. They take all the ballots and they stack them, but they don't run the election, those absentee ballots that have already arrived until 8 o'clock. Oh. So there will be no vote counting until 8, but at 8:50 the first run will come and you guys will be at your party. I believe you can walk, right?
Wait, is that Brian in the like lower left? I see a hand and I just...
Yes, Brian, move into the camera light.
Hello.
See you of course. Yeah. The top is the network and the bottom is
so I thought we'd do introductions. We have a guest with us today who has applied for an opening for our position. So we're going to start with Carrie. I have to.
You've got an echo. Yeah. There you go.
It's like the ear sometimes.
Yeah, double the. Okay. So maybe we won't start with you, Carrie. We'll start with somebody else. We'll just start around. Just say your name and one thing that you've been working on the climate action. Is that too hard?
Killing me.
Okay. How about one?
I'm say the same thing.
One piece. Okay. How about this? One piece of environmental good news. Oh,
are you going first?
Yes, my name is Sarah Phillip, and there are some people who think hydrogen is going to be a solution in this state, and they're doing something for the first time with hydrogen. I don't know anybody who, it takes a lot of electricity to do hydrogen, but they're optimistic about it. So now you can.
I haven't. Okay, good. Yeah.
My name is Tracy Cortani. I'm on city council and I'm the liaison to this group. And the one piece of good news I heard today was that solar production, that is, say, production of solar cells, has shifted away from China to the United States as a result of the Inflation Reduction Act. So that was kind of
great. Who else?
Oh, I heard something about COP28. Is there something good about it? I don't know. I'm not really. That's my good news. There's something about it.
Well, that they're there.
Well,
and I'm Dana Campbell. I have a local thing.
Great.
Okay, very local news. It rained so hard and there was so much wind that the power went out and trees went down. So maybe they won't go down next time to my house. For longer than how long? How long were you out for? I think it went off at 11, and then it went when I left the house, and then it wasn't back on when I came back. And it didn't. Like, no, this was when we had the thunderstorm. Yeah, but then that means that maybe the trees came down already. And they were going to come down. I don't know. So next time,
you know, they do grow.
The first big storm, so it wasn't really cold.
Yeah.
So maybe that's it.
They shake loose those loose.
Yeah. That's how I look at it.
You, Brian.
Oh, should I go? Okay. Yeah. I'm Brian Saunders. What else are we supposed to say?
Some good news.
Oh, some good news. Oh, well, the Milwaukee Forest is going. Right. I hope that's a trend that we can continue in Lake Forest.
Yeah.
Empty lots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if anybody wants to be on the planting team, they should let me know. We could do a climate action community planting team.
When's that happen? Like soon, right?
December 9th. You maybe go.
Let me know.
Okay.
And Ohio did pass their proposition.
I saw it. Yeah. Oh, that is.
Okay. Corey.
Corey Roach, City of Lake Forest Park. I think I saw that there's more like coral coming back. From the bleaching. So good.
Linda.
Well, to go a little bit further about what Corey said about the coral, at our Rotary Club, we heard a speaker who was actually from the Youth Rotary Club, which is called Rotaract. And in California, these kids have put together a whole program with various agencies to grow this new kind. Well, I don't know if it's new coral, but I'd never heard of it, that actually is healthy and survives in warmer water. And they're doing a huge project in California with that right now.
Great.
We usually call that cockroach coral. In Hawaii, we call it cockroach coral
Because it can survive anything?
Is it better than not having coral?
Are they reef builders?
From ecosystem services. Depends on, but I put you in contact with a guy in Hawaii who does cockroach coral.
Well, we missed you, Carrie.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, this is what I look like. I have like a seasonal bronchitis that just causes me to cough a lot, and I just don't want to freak people out and make it seem like I'm a walking vector or something. My name is Carrie Littlejohn. I lived here about a year, work at the zoo, in charge of all the research and evaluation there. Also the director of impact and evaluation for the National Network for Ocean and Climate Change Interpretation. This climate news, they're working on a new solutions bank for climate interpretation. Oh, that's good. Probably take 3 years, but you know, that's where doing something good.
Tamara?
Tamara Erickson, and I cheated and looked it up. And I have a good news. Apparently, the global demand for all fossil fuels could peak before the end of the decade. So they find the phenomenal rise of clean energy technologies will cause, us to not have as much demand for fossil fuels.
Right.
And Matt?
Hi, I'm Matt Sun. I did not cheat like Tamara, so I don't really have. My good news is again that antibiotics are awesome. Great that we invented them and that they still work. So thank you for.
For sure, for sure.
Okay. Great. I just wanted to say we're very excited to have you here, Carrie. Let me just say, and Carrie has taken a fresh look at the document, and you may have seen her notes on it. And so, fabulous. One more set of eyes. So the agenda today is really just one thing, and that is we just want to figure out what we're doing next. And so we have minutes from the last meeting. Is there a motion to accept those minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Dan and Linda. Okay, anybody object? We're in too casual meeting. Okay. Do we have any citizen comments?
Yeah, one citizen. So if you want to say anything besides.
Oh, Carrie.
That's really good. That's really long. You guys have put a lot of work into that.
Okay. So this is where I think we are. I think we have, I am unable to open this document on my computer, which is a downside. But we have 3 pieces to the document. It seems to me we have the narrative, which is sort of all of the things that we've talked about that are explain what climate is and what we're doing. We've added 2 things to that today. I added an executive summary, and I added Tracy's draft letter from the mayor. So those are in there. You may not have seen them. I think the executive summary isn't quite done yet, but it was the best I could do after I ripped up the first one, which was the hair on fire one, and do all this stuff. So it was a common. So we have the narrative. We have a whole section that are the strategies and actions. And Mimi and I took a look at those, and some of them we moved around and looked at where there were duplicates and sort of identified the duplicates and put them where we thought they should be, but we left their original color. So you could see if it had been moved from your project, your space to another one. And then we have a series of appendices that we are sort of still grappling with. What needs to go there? Are they clearly identified? This is what I think should happen, or that's what I think we could do. I was thinking that we could look right now at what each of us thought were some of the outstanding issues. We take those and make a list of those, and then divide into, not here, but identify 3 writing teams. One team that would take the narrative and look at all the notes and just be the decider about those notes. And we will, of course, save that old version so that you can go back and say, I don't know why you took out my profound insight about whatever, and we can come back to that. And then there'd be a writing team that looked at the strategies and actions. And some of those that need some internal consistency in terms of the language of how we've titled them and how we've done those things. And then a third writing group that might look at the appendices. Does that sort of, and so what I'm asking is that people would, in the next month, join with 2 or 3 other people and take that section and work. And I'm sort of trying to get a sense of the room if that's a way that we can proceed.
Yeah, I think that sounds really good, Sarah.
Can you get yours up and share?
Yeah, I'm just getting it.
Okay. So I can't get mine up, but Tracy's going to share the document. I don't think we need to look through it and except just to ask the question, what do you see as the outstanding issues that we need to address in this document?
Should we make a list of those at the top of this document?
Oh, that'd be fabulous. Would you do that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the executive summary needs to be revised a little. What other issues have you got? Okay, we're done. Brian, what have you got?
What have I got?
That's unresolved, that are sort of outstanding.
Oh, I just had a couple. I had just some questions about organizing, but that I don't know if it's what you want, Sarah. I mean, I think I've been putting some info on the natural systems, and seeing if that's something that we want to go into detail about, or as I said, there's a couple of things I was just wondering if we needed to sort of shift around. For instance, there was a couple of things on the built environment that kind of overlap with the natural system, so I'm not sure.
Okay.
How we want to organize.
We're just brainstorming what those problems are, and then we're going to assign that to somebody. Did you take? Did the stuff that you added to the natural system get into the strategies and tactics? Strategies, or did you into the chart, or did you add them to the?
I just added them to the working draft document.
Okay. Okay. All right. What else?
Brian, did you mark the ones you think should be moved?
I think I did. I put a comment in. I'm not
Okay.
sure how that comment works.
I'm trying to look and see, make sure it's there.
Okay.
Okay, so I do apologize, but I couldn't get the edit function to work, so that's why I have the red comments with my name under there, because that was the only way I could actually put a comment in. And then for some reason it decided to work, which is why later it started. And it's like, I don't understand Google Docs.
I don't understand. I've opened the wrong document 8 times.
But the principal thing that I wanted to point out was that basically our preamble needs a lot of work.
Okay.
I mean, if you think about we the people in order to form a perfect people, I mean, ours is not saying why it exists, right? It doesn't have the goals, yeah. So I think, sorry, I didn't want to make anybody sick here. Where is the preamble?
Yeah.
There it is. Okay. So So yeah, here my comment was basically, and I think Gary might have said it first. The thesis sentence really just has to lay out, here's my whole comment. There you go. Ongoing climate crisis demands actions to mitigate greenhouse gas production and increase the community's resiliency to crisis-induced effects. This plan explains concrete actions the city of Lake Forest Park and its residents can take to achieve those goals. I mean, it's not, Jefferson, but on the other hand, it kind of gets to some of the points I wanted to get to. So,
are you pointing that out, or are those your suggestions?
yeah, that's my suggestion on the right.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
I see.
yeah.
I see. Got it. Okay. Okay. What other sort of were the outstanding issues?
I mean, we could pretty much go through each of Carrie's comments, but she's got some really good ones in there. So, I mean, are there any that can come to mind?
Yeah, okay. So something I'm trying to, I haven't looked at it since this weekend, sorry.
Right.
And I've looked at like 5 other documents.
Didn't mean to put you on the spot
oh no,
either.
you're totally fine.
Okay.
I unfortunately do this every day, all day. Yeah, I would look at kind of some parts of the beginning, the narrative section, look at the flow of it, like what is going where. There's a couple sections from what I'm remembering that jumped around a little bit. So that's why I tried to pull them out, like, oh, this actually should go up there. For some of them too, I wonder what your reading level is. Generally speaking, which you guys had a reference, references I didn't even know about, like, this is, I'm like, oh, that's really great. We always just say 8th grade reading level, that's perfect. Harry Potter is higher than an 8th grade reading level. Especially when you're talking about some of the climate action, like the climate language, I would really try to make sure it's at an intelligible level for about an 8th grade level. Would really beef up the introduction. Like the little bit that I read there, I was like, oh, this is really cool. I learned a lot of new things in 5 sentences that I didn't know about, like Forest Park. But I would really try to ground it in like, what is the purpose of this plan? Like, what are we trying to achieve? And there's a lot of potential beefing up, like just really setting the context within like Forest Park as well. And I can reread this. I was like just kind of going into it blindly and not really knowing what I was gonna find. I went through it and then went through it again, but try to think. I did have some questions about some of like the strategies and the actions. But I can look at just yeah, some of this I tried to point out, like, oh, I would move this here. I'd have to go back and look at kind of what I wrote for some of this. There was one thing I had suggested with moving around for the flow to make it a little bit better with the vulnerabilities, I think it was. And then one other thing, sorry, just random things popped into my mind. I know in one place there was something about frontline communities. I don't know what the politics are of the city, but I think it's because you guys stuck with vulnerable residents, which I think is probably a lot better because I don't know if we actually have frontline communities here. But I would really, there was the definition about how you were talking about frontline, or sorry, vulnerable residents was a little, probably, and I think when, I don't know, personally, when we have a lot of people writing on one document, it's kind of like, get a lot of cooks in the kitchen and somebody puts in too much salt or not enough, right? Really easily. Can you go down a little bit more? There was also a couple things that I would recommend. I mean, from like a government perspective, there were some places where it was really heavily referenced onto what other cities were doing, which is really great because you're embedding it in and adding some credibility to what we're doing. We're not just reinventing the wheel. But I would maybe even just put like the acknowledgements in one kind of section if you really want to call that out, and then really just own it. Like, this is a plan for Lake Forest Park. Yes, it is informed by other cities, but we're taking complete ownership of this, and we've done our due diligence and we've done our homework. So there was a couple places where I kind of like, oh, I'm just going to take out mention of shoreline and Kenmore here, because I don't think, like, once you add those kudos in, just cut it out and go with it. I remember something there. There was a couple places where I was like, oh, there's something missing here. Like, it jumps in. There's something here. Oh, the visualizations. I guess part of my question would be, what did you guys, so when you did this survey, when you did the questionnaire, did you, what is the data live? Was that ever reported out?
No, it's in the appendix.
Oh, it's in the appendix.
So the full data, the full data.
Okay, is that another document?
It's linked to, it was linked to.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's an.
Oh, I do. Sorry, I that was like page 40 something. And my kids were finally like, and then I'm like, okay, we'll look at the appendix later.
But you have to click to it.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. Yeah. Because I know it kind of jumped around. I'm happy to look at the survey as well and see if there's any of the data that might actually better match here. There was something I put there. I remember something about Lake Forest Park versus National. The presentation, sorry, I don't want to say something that's going to hurt anybody's feelings.
It's just me, something.
Okay. I'm happy to, like, I don't know if it was a Likert scale. I don't know. I've spent way too much of my time on data viz. I'm happy to look at that. Like, I don't know, visualization can be really important. For some of the strategies, I remember wondering, and some of the actions, I know there were a couple that read it more as goals than actions, so I did flag those ones. But I was just kind of curious in general, are those, because I'm thinking about your next steps kind of being towards an implementation plan, are the strategies things that you guys are suggesting to the city, or are these things that you've identified as very concrete actions that you're recommending that they take? I had no idea when I was reading it.
And that's probably because we weren't quite clear on this whole thing too. We did have discussions about what our recommendation to the town is basically hire somebody who's going to figure this all out.
Yeah.
So we do have these suggestions and fairly specific things to talk about, but it's not, we're denying that role.
Okay.
It's not.
No, it's not the place of the committee as well to do that. One thing that you might want to consider, and there was something I put at the beginning of this because there was like focal areas, there were like 5 or 6 focal areas. But then, and I would really look at the flow of how you're changing from the one to the next, because then you have that, and then you switch to goals, but then there's 6 focal areas for under the categories for the strategies, but there's only 5 listed above. And I was trying to see if they actually matched up. The titles were different.
So things got moved around. So you know that this is why we needed you. Yeah. We needed someone to read the whole thing fresh eyes.
And be like,
do exactly what you're doing.
Okay.
So don't worry.
Okay.
And we made comments on it to this effect.
Okay.
So right?
Yeah. I didn't. I tried to be polite in my comments, but not really hold back too much. Yeah, so I would really make sure that, those all line up. I would even make it really easy for the reader to be like, these are strategies, really be very clear. These are strategies and actions that we have researched and we are proposing for the city to take into consideration. Reiterate that this is an iterative process, that these should be updated, etc. I don't know if you would want to go as far as even providing a little bit of context about how they're being presented. If there's because you have strategy 1, 2, and 3, I think for each of the focal areas, are they in a particular order? Are they high priority, low priority? Is it just
it's random?
That's fine too. Those are things prioritized. Right. Those are things that you could. I don't know. That's what all the questions I had. I'm like, oh, I wonder. Trying to think. I put all of whatever I was thinking. I did put in a comment.
So yes, very helpful.
It is.
And a lot of I could weigh in on some of the outreach and education pieces, the community ones, but most of the environmental ones I didn't go too deep into. And then I did every the appendices. Sorry.
Well, hooray for you, is what I say.
No, this is again great.
All right. Well, I think these are very helpful things to keep in mind. Are there other ones that folks have that other considerations that we need to take? And does it make sense in light of what Carrie was saying? Do you think does it, we just have to think very, if we're gonna break into the 3 groups, we really need to be careful about the transitions, that's all.
Right. I mean, at least align goals with the strategies, right? Yeah.
But if we just take, okay, so are there other issues outstanding issues that we need to be thinking about? There was a section also where we were talking about, these are the things we're not doing. And then we had talked about that. You know, we're not checking this with all of the other policies and all of the other documents in the city. We're not cross-referencing those. We just don't have the capacity. We think it needs a climate justice review, but we don't have the capacity to do that. Somebody ought to do that. Are there other things that we are saying we're not doing and that ought to be included in this?
So you mean make a section that says?
Well, there's a paragraph, I think, at the end.
Well, here's a fair question. That Corey, do you know how much of the budget hasn't been spent? Excuse me, the annual budget we haven't spent, roughly?
You guys haven't spent hardly.
So, I mean, it is possible to engage a consultant that do, for instance, climate justice review.
I don't know, but
I'm not sure how much those things cost.
yeah,
to be fair.
I don't know if it'd be in your budget, but it is something you guys can look at.
Well, one of the things I was thinking was, and this may be out of order, but it may be that we say, in my dreams, we would get this writing done. We'd have it done by the next meeting. And then we'd have a final document that we'd all look at again. We present it to the council in January, and then they
might give feedback that you guys have to take on, or
to figure out what our next steps are. I mean, now what? I mean,
do we know that yet? Do we know what happens when we present it to the council, if they will come back and say, can you work on this section, or thank you very much, we'll take it from here?
If the council formally adopts the document, then that's their, yep, we'll take it from here. I think then, you know, the committee's focus would change a bit in terms of becoming more implementation rather than development. But if they say, yeah, here are some things that we'd like you to work on, then it probably would, you know, go back to writing bits of it.
And what are the chances of that? Like, how well are they going to read this document?
Okay, candidly, probably do the executive summary, probably look at the figures, probably look at the recommendations, probably not a lot else.
So that's maybe where we want to focus. I was thinking it is very light on figures. I think it's got a lot of words, and we can put more figure type.
Because one thing that I do recall was when Kenmore's was presented to their council, they had like a 4-page, really nice glossy document with that duck or penguin or whatever the heck figure it is, right? Okay. And then they had the actual, you know, kind of formal report, right? Okay. So I know that the council approved both, but I think the one that they actually looked at was the, you know, one with the cute figure.
Yeah. How much time do they have? Was that essentially the executive summary and figures?
It effectively was the executive summary, a couple of the more key figures specifically to their city, and the recommendations, or at least the top line recommendations.
So maybe we should look at what Kenmore did then.
It could be. I mean,
So.
I'm not saying that that's necessarily the best strategy we have, but at least it's a strategy to be considered.
And this probably won't be the first time to take this to council. It'll probably have to go back 2 or 3 times. Well, what are they going to do each time? Well, I mean,
very hard to predict. I mean, you never know when somebody's going to be in their bonnet about a particular thing that you said here, right? So,
well, that's great. I hope they get bees in their bonnet.
Yes,
I'm worried that they're not.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
I guess one of the things that this has brought up is we kind of do need to hire a professional writer just to smooth it all together, right? Isn't that what mean, how else is this going to come together?
Well, what is it gonna be used for, I guess, is if we pay a whole bunch of money out just to have our writing smooth, and then nobody's reading it anyway.
Well, no, but at the end, when they finally say, okay, we approve this, but it just needs to be cleaned up or something, we're just gonna go through the entire document and make the same language, make the same reading level, and that's.
I think you guys can do it.
Yeah.
Considering what you put into here, you can do it.
We can do it, but it takes time, and it takes a lot of time. And if we paid somebody to do it, it would happen. But do we need it? And they could also create the visuals. Visuals, the whole final package. But are they gonna do that? Can we find somebody who's gonna? But I mean, can we find someone to say that, and they would have to make visuals out of what we've done? That's what we're paying them to do. Yeah. They would work with us to do it. I don't know if your budget would. We don't real this. Well, we might have any, but we only have $5, so it's not really there.
It might be that we proceed as we're going. We go to the council. The document's going to be what the document is, and then if they want something better, or
so I need to follow up that idea. Is that Kenmore and everybody has their climate action plan on their website, so you do want to have it in the format eventually for people to see, but maybe it's not yet. Maybe it's not.
No. So kind of my dream thing would be if instead of basically finding somebody to go over the document, as you say, there's plenty of people here who can do the formal report and give it the proper shine that it needs, is to hire somebody who's sort of a manga web person, somebody who does basically comics on the web for a living, who has a science background.
That's you, Matt. You know those people.
Right. And who basically could do like a 4-page summary or something.
You're reading your email.
Right. But my point being that basically we need a science communicator more than anything else. So the point is that y'all who are at these fancy institutions, you have to have a science communication program. And there must be some up and coming class or faculty for that matter who would be willing to take this on as a side project.
You think? The whole document, because I think
most
of it's not science.
Right. Read over the whole document, distill it down to basically what the important points are. We could kind of point them in a particular direction, right? But the idea is that their deliverable literally would be something we could put on the web that basically people could look at, and we would pretty much assume that that's the only piece that people were going to look at, right?
Yeah, that's a good.
Yeah.
So do you science people know somebody?
Who would do it for free?
No.
No. We have a small honorarium.
Well, how much money do we have?
Like 20 something.
Yeah.
I thought we had. That's a lot of money.
That's for the 2 years.
Like from a student, they do it for sure.
Or even just
for a lot less than that. They're probably gonna have to have a business license if we're paying someone. I'll have to look at that. I don't think I think it has to be in the license.
For $20,000 for an RFP, I think you'd probably find a comms firm who would do something. I would try and get it really as clean as you possibly can from a text perspective. And they would more like have the ability to do 2 things, have them do a run through, a pass through, give recommendations, do edits again, and then they would polish and format the document into something that is not a Google Doc. And then it could also be then the ask would be that they would take the large document and make like a 4 to 6 page document that's a much slimmer version of it. So then there's the whole version, and then there's a light version that is going to be more accessible to people.
Can you call Cascade Consulting that did all these other ones and see if they'll do that?
Yeah. Would stick it into part of the other plans from the city? What do you want? Like take this and stick it into the comprehensive plan.
Well, yeah, this needs to go to the planning commission for them to.
But could we have their consultant like build it into the whole comprehensive plan?
I mean, you guys are going to give the planning commission this document, and they are going to take a look at it and approve it where they can.
Because they're gonna grab this.
They're not gonna make, they can't do the work. of it, but they'll look at the plan, take what they can and implement it. Because the goal of this, anyways, I think.
Do we know when that's going to happen, Corey?
I didn't hear you. Say that again.
Do we know when that's going to happen? Like when the planning commission will take a look at our document and take out bits and pieces of it and incorporate it into the comprehensive plan?
Whenever you guys feel comfortable enough to send it over to them.
Will it be the planning commission doing that, or will it be their consultant doing that? Like, is there a time frame that they would need it by?
I don't know time frame, but both of them would look at it. Yeah, we would give it to the consultant to review.
And they're doing it. The comprehensive plan will be done in 2024, right? Which is
Couple months.
Couple.
I mean, like, yeah, they're starting the process now. It will take, I don't know how long it'll be a year, I think.
Okay. So here's where I think we are. I think we have identified some of the outstanding issues. We are looking to, this is what my suggestion would be, we continue to refine this document and do these by writing teams. We get something that's a little more final. And then at the same time, we're going to look for, like, whatever the science communication people are. And Corey's going to look at Cascadia Consulting, which is the one that did lots of these things, and see if they could take what we have and what it would cost to take what we have and make it web ready and do 4-page brochure in the pocket. But if any of you science people, I'm looking at you, know somebody, or you have a student who you think is fabulous and could do this, and would do it over the Christmas vacation, let's hire them.
Good luck with that.
Well, they used to work it under deadline. So,
Yeah, I did notice all of you guys were, coming in at the deadline. Some of you were coming in. So that's just who we are, right?
we are.
Okay. So does that make sense? Okay. Now the hard part. There are 3 sections of writing, and you can be in all of them if you want. Just saying. There's the narrative section, the strategies and actions, and the appendices. Is anybody longing? And we're not going to leave here till we have a date to meet. So each team has a date to meet. I'm going to bar the door, and you can't go to any parties.
I'll be involved in the strategy next.
Okay, Brian.
I'll do the narrative.
Dana.
I'd like to be with the strategies also.
Okay, Linda.
What's the 3rd section?
Appendix.
Nobody wants to
I'll
do
take
that.
appendix.
Oh, good.
Nobody else is, yeah.
I can help with the narrative.
Oh, hooray. Tamara, is something calling your name?
You can put me wherever you need me.
Let's put you on the narrative.
All right.
Okay. Mimi.
I was gonna tell you to put me where you wanted to put me, but I really don't want to be on the
Yes.
No, you're going to be on strategies and actions.
Oh, they don't want me there, though. I spent my life there.
Mimi wants to
That
be in
is
narratives.
These in
Mimi
both
in
places?
narrative.
Oh, I put them here?
Do you care? What would you rather be in?
I shouldn't be in strategies and actions because
Okay.
We're putting you in narratives.
You're putting it
The narrative is probably the first part, because the one that's going to have the most glossy figures and things like that.
I think, yeah, well, I don't know. I think the strategies and
strategy actions
actions
have been really hard to parse and make them.
the
There's
same.
been these sort of iterations through it.
But we don't have any, we don't really
But maybe,
I don't know if we need figures and
no, just, no,
it's just.
It just needs to be.
yeah, no, just the figures. It is its own computer, it's a table, right, so it's already.
Yeah.
Carrie, can we put you on one of these?
Yeah, that's fine.
What would you like to be on?
Probably gonna be most useful in the narrative, but I can go wherever.
Put you there. Okay, and I would like to be on, I would like to be on all of them. So I'd like to be on the ones that, if I can make the meetings. So the narrative people, Dana, Tamara, Mimi, and Carrie. When are you gonna meet?
You have to be.
What?
Oh, right, you got 5 now. You're on the committee. That's more than 4.
She's not on the committee. She'll be.
I resigned.
Okay.
So we have to have 5 or less.
4.
Or less. Okay.
Oh, well, we've
All
got
right, you're on
5.
your own.
We have 5 even with us.
No,
Okay, just put me on.
Dana, Matt.
no, Matt's on appendix, he said.
No. Oh, did you say appendix?
I said narrative, but I can move to appendix.
Oh,
There you go.
so you were right, sorry.
Okay,
I'm gonna be a team player, man.
okay, so Dana, Tamara, Mimi, and Carrie.
Okay.
How about a week from today? We meet at Third Place Commons sometime.
Today, Tuesday.
Oh, wait. Could we do it Monday?
I'll be in Arizona next week from Sunday through Friday, but I could join virtually.
Is that the holiday week?
Yeah, Friday's the
It's
holiday.
Saturday, but depending on where you work, you might get it Friday.
So is the 13th okay?
What's the 13th?
Monday.
Monday would be.
Okay, you got a time? Can you meet in the afternoon? Evening?
I just need to know what time.
Okay, 5 o'clock at the Commons.
5.
5 at the Commons on November 13th. Okay, how about the strategies and actions? Linda, Brian, Linda, and me.
What if you guys meet at the same time and then we can wave to each other across?
Okay.
That would be important. No.
No, we could be in separate rooms.
We only have like a third of her in each group, right? So it's like more than a third.
Can you do Monday? Can you do Monday the 13th?
Monday works.
Can you meet at the Commons and not near them
At 5 o'clock.
at 5 o'clock? Okay.
We can do round robin and then take like 3 people
will
from
move
one
around.
committee and
Sarah,
Yeah.
I'm in meetings from 3 to 6:30 on Monday, so
well, that solves that.
Okay. Brian, I'm retired, so when can you do?
Monday, Wednesday, Friday afternoons are all good for me.
So can you do it at 2?
I can do it too.
2? Linda?
I got a meeting at 3. Could we do it at 1 or 1:30?
1?
1.
1 o'clock.
I'm in.
Okay, and Tracy and Matt.
And
So
Sarah.
just the
And
time.
Sarah. How about November 13th?
For 3.
Right, split the death.
Yes,
Like, yeah.
He's working. He has a real job.
Yes.
I mean, I'm
I know
retired.
what you mean, yes. I have an unreal job.
Yes, you also have a real job. Wait, is it just Tracy and I?
And me.
Okay.
She doesn't have constraints.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the 13th works for me.
3 o'clock?
Wait, 3?
Okay.
Oh, no. If it's a weekday, it has to be after 5 for me.
Okay, that's fine with me too.
5 o'clock, 5:30.
How long does it take? How long does it take? Are you commuting?
No, I mean, I can be there very shortly after 5. I
Okay,
just
let's
walk
say
over.
5:30 then.
Okay.
Sounds good. So 5:30 on the 13th?
Yep. In the Commons.
All right. At the Commons.
And
I will
talk to
add
the
it.
other people.
Right. I don't count. That's not gonna be
Oh, you don't count?
Yeah. I'm
But
really sorry.
All right. I was very anxious about this meeting, so I'm eager to. Are we done? My question. We have,
So clearly state the deliverable
Okay.
in these meetings.
what we're trying to do, well, I think you may have to meet more than once, let me just say. We're trying to get each of these sections, into a format where everybody can look at them again for the final time. And I think we need to create like a new document that doesn't have any of those.
Each of us take our own sections and create a new document and we'll work on that. And then
Right.
So we have the original.
Right. So you just, I guess, you just copy the section that you're working on. The deliverable is to make it easy.
Incorporate all the comments that have been written. Yeah.
Right. Make it
Together.
judgment about those, include them or don't include them. And then I think for the strategies and actions, we got to create some consistency. And then look at the issues that were raised about how, whether they match or not. The 5 and the 6, we ought to be able to pick one, right? Okay.
One immediate issue that I can see is that the appendices are numbered crazy.
Okay. Start over.
So when you make a
I don't
reference,
even know how we got,
yeah,
mine is ZC.
Right.
Because we didn't know what that was.
and that's fine. We needed provisional numbers, and that's cool.
That's what you're in charge.
But yeah, but the point is basically in your sections, like especially strategies and actions, if you would be very clear as to what the appendix is about, that way we can always renumber, right? And say, oh,
in order, right?
kinda, not exactly. I noticed. It's bad.
No, but the appendix should, yeah.
Right.
Right. It should go in the same order as the.
So
Right.
you want
Focus
feedback
points.
from the other 2 committees about what order this.
Or for that matter, when you reference it in your sections, instead of just saying appendix ZZ, say appendix ZZ data on, survey or whatever, right?
Why don't we just renumber all of them, like the order that they're in now? And then we can. I guess they should be put in the order which they come upon and document, right?
Which
So-
may change as a result of.
Right,
doing
but
this.
if we, that's why they have these random numbers for
Right,
them right now.
so it's okay to keep the provisional stuff now, but be very clear about which appendix you're talking about, if you would in your sections.
Oh.
Yeah. Thanks.
Are there anything else for the good of the order today?
The next meeting.
Oh, Corey's out of town next. Carrie's out of town next meeting. So the question is, can we meet on
Lakeport Park, I said.
Well, you don't do that.
Because we're getting into the holiday.
Yeah.
right? So it's very hard.
So
Is the 6th, Wednesday, the 6th work for people? December 6th?
We tried this before to change the date and I remember how horrible that was. It's fine for me.
It's fine.
December 6th is fine.
Sure.
Does it have to be in? Oh, wait.
No, usually it's
Are you
Tuesday.
still teaching on that day? I think I might be.
Done.
Yeah.
Okay, party time too. All right, the 6th,
The 6th?
you'll send out.
It doesn't work for me, but okay, you can fill me in. I have a class every Wednesday evening.
Move the meeting earlier today.
My class is it's 6:30 to 8:30.
Can we?
Are you on Zoom? Is it a Zoom class?
Yeah, it's a Zoom class.
How many Zooms?
How many screens do you have? Yeah, could we meet at 5?
Or 5? Wait, I better.
Can we meet at 5? Going once?
I can meet at 5.
So then we can have you for some of it, Tamara.
Yeah.
So happy, meeting. Yeah. Those kids don't need to be fed.
Yeah, I have another a meeting that ends at 5, so I could listen in the car. That's an in-person meeting.
Is that okay?
Yeah, you don't need to plan it around me.
All right. Can you make that a matter? It'll be on Zoom. You can be on Zoom, so you can make a 5 o'clock meeting.
Right. 5 on Wednesday.
Okay.
Okay.
Wait, so how are we gonna do this without Corey?
She's back. She's missing Tuesday.
Got it. Okay.
That's why we're not meeting. We're just moving it a day after.
Fair
Okay. All right, it's 7:56.
Nice.
Wow, that's pretty
So-
good.
Well done.
Okay, anything else for the good of the order? Okay, meeting adjourned. Full party.
Thank you, Sarah.
Well, thank you. I hope this works. And really, Carrie, it was so helpful to have all this stuff.
That's what we needed.
Yes.
So what is the procedure then to move Carrie?
Well,
Should probably an interview.
Yeah, we'll set up an interview.
The mayor.
Oh,